দর্শক আমন্ত্রণ জানাচ্ছি চ্যানেল 24 এর নিয়মিত আয়োজন জানতে চাই শুনতে চাইতে আজকে আমরা কথা বলবো রোহিঙ্গা ইস্যু নিয়ে। এর আগেও আমরা অনুষ্ঠান করেছি, কিন্তু প্রায় 1.5 মাসের উপরে হয়ে গেছে এই সমস্যাটি বাংলাদেশ ফেস করছে। যদিও বাংলাদেশ যথেষ্ট চেষ্টা করছে এবং সেই চেষ্টা বাংলাদেশ সরকারের সাথে যে সংস্থাটি সবচেয়ে বেশি কাজ করছে বলে আমরা বিশ্বাস করতে চাই, সেটি হচ্ছে জাতিসংঘের শরণার্থী বিষয়ক সংস্থা। আজকের শোতে জাতিসংঘের শরণার্থী বিষয়ক সংস্থার ঢাকায় যিনি প্রতিনিধি আছেন, জনাব শিনজি কুবো আমাদের সাথে আছে। এই বিষয়ে 1.5 মাস পর, অর্থাৎ এই প্রায় 55 দিন থেকে 57 দিন কি অবস্থা আছে, আপডেট কি আছে, সে বিষয়ে আমরা আলোচনা করব। হ্যালো শিনজি কুবো, ওয়েলকাম টু শো once again. And I still remember the first day we talked about this issue, the influx. We just had a prediction and we talked about this. And it's been almost 55 to 57 days, if I'm not wrong. What is the latest update? And you also been to the Cox's Bazar many times in between this time, right?
Well, thank you very much once again for me to come to this show. I think after more than 6 weeks, unfortunately, the situation of humanitarian crisis because of the influx of Rohingya refugees continues to escalate. I think it's already more than 519,000 people who have sought safety in Bangladesh from day one. And unfortunately, the trend of this strategy has not stopped. Yes. For instance, we have received a report that even just yesterday, additional 10,000 Rohingyas had to flee. Okay. According to the local authorities,
authorities of Myanmar.
Local authorities in Cox's Bazar, they are stepping up the preparedness so that they can receive Rohingya refugees to come, desperately fleeing from the fear of additional violence. So I must say, already what happened in the past 6 weeks have been a huge tragedy for all of us living in today's world, but this situation continues. Unfortunately, and it is going beyond our imagination. Every hour, around 500 new refugees arriving. And that is what we have been seeing in the past 6 weeks.
Every hour?
Every hour, 500 people are arriving, average.
That is the fastest ever in the world?
I have never seen a dramatic development like this, whether it was in Greece, whether it was in Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey. It didn't happen like this massive, tragic scale.
So it gives a lot of challenge to the government, to the UN bodies, especially UNHCR. In the past 6 weeks, what are the challenges you really faced and you try to cover it up? I believe it's not covered up yet, but you try to cover. What are the challenges?
Well, it is very important to start with acknowledging the determination of the government and the people of Bangladesh. No matter what the painful, risky consequences it could be for Bangladesh, I understand that there is a very serious, robust determination, particularly by the leadership of the government, Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and her staff, to try to save the lives. I think this is a very unprecedented, very exceptional government decision, particularly when we know refugee issues are becoming more and more unpleasant issues. Many countries are becoming less and less positive in accepting refugees. So this is a very important starting point. We cannot fail the expectations of the government and particularly the local host communities, refugee host communities' expectations to our work. As I said, the refugee flow has not stopped. Yes. So day by day, no matter how fast we intervene, no matter how many more relief items are brought in, it has been very slow. Unfortunately, it has been extremely inefficient. And we continue day and night to try to build up our capacity to bring the relief items for these people. But unfortunately, this cannot stop in the coming weeks.
As you talked about the relief issue, I believe this is not enough for all those people, because we had Rohingyas for several years, and we are having non-stop Rohingyas, and they're coming here to save their lives. In the relief section, what are the main challenges? Is it of water? Is that the place for their staying, safe place, secure place, hygiene place? What are the challenges in the relief section you faced?
Well, I recall what UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Mr. Grandi, said
Yeah.
toward the end of his recent visit. They need everything. They have lost everything back home, and they need everything. So everything starting from the space for their survival, land, clean water, food, nutritious items, non-food items to cover them up. Everything is very, very challenging. I think the most important and priority issue is how to prevent this situation, emergency situation, to become another emergency situation, especially because of this congestion. If you have hundreds of thousands of people in a very small area, it is a matter of the time for epidemics breakout can start. So our colleagues working for WHO, UNICEF, MSF, with a strong intervention by the government health department, have been working around the clock to try to address this situation. I'm very relieved that WHO colleagues, together with UNICEF, have managed to bring vaccinations for the required interventions up to 900,000, for up 900,000 recently, and they are starting a massive campaign, vaccination campaign. So this would really help to address the situation, but water sanitation needs to be massively improved or addressed as soon as possible.
So UNHCR have any kind of plan for next 1 year or 6 months? Do you have any kind of plan? Because as it's not been stopped yet, and the violence in the Myanmar is still going on. So we don't expect, but we can't stop these people coming. And keeping that thing in mind, do you have any plan for 6 months, 1 year?
Well, it's a very difficult question, but at the same time, it is probably the most important question to be answered. I don't think it is sustainable to maintain this emergency phase for a long time, especially for a people of 500,000 scale. UNHCR, together with other sister partner agencies, will continue to do whatever we can for life-saving interventions, maybe in the coming 4 or 5 months. But that needs to go along with another big thinking. We need to think big.
How big?
I think it's a matter of bringing more actors,
Okay.
particularly the actors who have expertise in terms of development, in terms of strategic interventions for interim and more sustainable solutions. They could be World Bank, they could be Asia Development Bank, and other development actors. These people need to come as soon as possible and start working on a technical basis to see how this situation could be addressed while looking into the huge environmental damages, also the huge economical impact on the local communities. I think it is also very important to remember that Bangladesh government has spent huge amount of resources, whether it is financial resources or human resources. They have been doing a massive intervention. So all this needs to be properly taken care of. Otherwise, it will not become sustainable, and it will move into another huge disaster. So I think it is very important for UNHCR to be part of very important discussions to make sure that the lives we are saving will have opportunities to move to a little bit more normalcy. That is, I think, it's very important.
On that point, we have to take our first break. But after the break, when we come back, I would like to know more about how World Bank or ADB or organization like that can really help us in this coordination for the long run. দর্শক, আমরা আলোচনা করছিলাম যে রোহিঙ্গা সমস্যা সমাধানের জন্য এই মুহূর্তে যেই চ্যালেঞ্জগুলো রয়েছে, সেই চ্যালেঞ্জগুলো কিভাবে বাংলাদেশ সরকার এখন পর্যন্ত নিজ তহবিল থেকে অর্থায়নের মাধ্যমে নানাভাবে সাহায্য করে সমাধান করে আসছে, সমাধানের চেষ্টা চালিয়ে যাচ্ছে। জাতিসংঘের শরণার্থী সংস্থা কিভাবে পাশে আছে, এবং সিনজি কাবু বলছিলেন যে বিশ্বব্যাংকের মতো যে বহুজাতিক বড় প্রতিষ্ঠানগুলো রয়েছে যারা সবাইকে নানা কাজে নানাভাবে অর্থায়ন করে থাকে, তাদেরও এই প্রক্রিয়াতে অংশগ্রহণ করা উচিত। আমরা বিরতির পর এসে জানবো যে এই প্রক্রিয়াতে তারা কিভাবে অংশগ্রহণ করতে পারে বলে শিঞ্জি কিউ মনে করেন। সাথে থাকুন, ফিরছে একটি বিরতির পর। আমন্ত্রণ আরো একবার জানতে চাই, শুনতে চাই। আজকের পর্বে কথা বলছিলাম রোহিঙ্গার সমস্যা, প্রায় 2 মাস হয়ে গেছে এবং 2 মাসে বাংলাদেশ সরকার এবং জাতিসংঘের শরণার্থী সংস্থা ইউএনএইচসিআরকে সাথে নিয়ে কিভাবে চ্যালেঞ্জ মোকাবেলা করছে, প্রতিদিনের চ্যালেঞ্জ। আলোচনার এক পর্যায়ে বিশ্ব ব্যাংকের কথা এসেছিল যে চ্যালেঞ্জগুলো মোকাবেলার জন্য বিশ্ব ব্যাংক সহ অন্যান্য যে প্রতিষ্ঠানগুলো রয়েছে বিশ্ব ব্যাংকের মতো তাদের সহযোগিতা নেওয়া যেতে পারে। শিঞ্জি কিউ, ওয়েলকাম টু দ্য শো ওয়ান্স এগেন। As before the discussion, you said that organization like body like World Bank can be part of this huge task. How do you think and why do you think they can be part of this huge task?
Well, we have a number of lessons learned from different refugee crises around the world. And often UNHCR faces a limit in terms of its emergency humanitarian interventions, especially when the scale is huge and the impact on the refugee host community is very serious. I think these are the situations where development actors like World Bank, with very strong expertise to address the development issues of host community with huge amount of resources, could come and start to discussing about way forward.
Do you have any example of that?
Well, for instance, if you go to Ethiopia, we have a very protracted refugee situations from Eritrea. I think it has been a very protracted situation, but I think with the collaboration with World Bank and other development partners, the situation would be turned to should be turned into a more sustainable interventions to benefit local communities from development angle, so that they can continue to provide the proper protection space for refugees. I think if you go to Pakistan, again, they have a massive presence of Afghan refugees, but with the help of development partners, we are addressing the needs of refugee hosting, the community. I think World Bank in Bangladesh also has a number of interesting schemes. I think they have already a number of development projects ongoing in Cox's Bazar. I understand that as long as there is an agreement requested from the government, World Bank is ready to try to shift these interventions to this ongoing crisis for interim solutions. I think World Bank also has the program which can assist the refugee hosting country like Bangladesh to make sure that the government will have enough resources to address the refugee crisis.
Sort of capacity.
Yes, so that the refugees can spend meaningful time while in exile before they go home. Okay. So we are starting to organize some dialogue with these partners. And I hope that there will be...
Is that your initiative? I mean, UNHCR initiative?
We have a responsibility to act as a catalyst. We are humanitarian agency, but we have a very important role to play to try to link this humanitarian emergency phase to a little bit more sustainable and inclusive arrangement. And we are hoping that this kind of dialogue can assist the government department.
Is the dialogue on a formal level happened?
I think we are still in the process of making momentum on that.
We all have seen the definition given by the government as forcibly displaced citizens of Myanmar. And worldwide, these people are somehow called refugee. I mean, if you call someone refugee, he or she is somehow forcibly displaced from his or her country. So it's all the same. But you also been to the briefing by the foreign minister just a few days back, and you had the briefing along with other high officials and diplomats. So I'm not asking about your stand. I'm just asking about the real definition to let the people know. What does really refugee mean? And does that mean that it's equal to displaced citizens of Myanmar? I mean, is it like same or it has some definition differences?
If you are a refugee and if you are recognized as a refugee, this person is legally entitled to a number of protection benefits. So this is a starting point. Having said that, I think what is happening is based on a huge generosity and a huge demonstration of solidarity.
Yes.
Based on the humanity by the government of Bangladesh. And this is a sovereign state of Bangladesh. So we have to pay a proper respect to the government,
Sure.
the policy and its decisions. So we are here to support the government to try to address the humanitarian crisis toward solutions. So I hope our interventions, our engagement with the government would be useful enough to try to address the protection issues of refugees and also toward solutions.
Okay.
What I want to emphasize here is that the fundamental question is who a refugee is. Refugee is a person who has no choice but to flee their home country because of violence, serious human rights violations, and persecution, because who he is or because who she is at home. And what is happening is clear textbook case of refugee crisis, because Rohingya people have not done
Even
anything
Secretary
wrong.
General also said like this.
Exactly. I think United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, has been 1,000% clear that this is a refugee crisis and UN must go by the book so that these people will preserve the right to return. However, how to treat them during the time of the exile, during the time of seeking asylum in Bangladesh is another set of reality. So we have to make sure that the government will have enough resources, government will have properly informed options to address this situation. Unfortunately, no one has an illusion that these people can find solutions back in Myanmar in the very near future. People are still fleeing, villages are still burned down, and they are fleeing from fear in advance of any violations inflicted upon them. So we have to prepare for some period of time to make sure these people will have a meaningful time.
Right.
And for that, we really urge that all the stakeholders, UN agencies, humanitarian agencies, government stakeholders, media, join forces in full forces so that the government will have enough capacities and full of options to address this situation in the right way. I think refugees are the refugees not because I call them refugees, but because they are the very victim of persecution and human rights. So this is the starting point.
Right. Well, on that discussion, on this point of discussion, we have to take another break. But when you come back, I have to know that I really want to know, as UNHCR also trying to work in Mundu and some other places in Myanmar, how secure they are, or they've been effective. Do they have green light from the Myanmar government, as Aung San Suu Kyi publicly promised that she will let the international community to enter her country and work for the solution, but that will be after the break. দর্শক, আমরা কথা বলছিলাম রোহিঙ্গা সমস্যার একটা বড় জায়গা সরকার বলছে যে জোরপূর্বক বাস্তুহারা মিয়ানমারের নাগরিক, আর যে রিফিউজি অর্থাৎ শরণার্থী যে সংজ্ঞা সেটি নিয়ে সেই আলোচনা যাই হোক না কেন, এই মুহূর্তে প্রয়োজন এই মানুষগুলোর পাশে দাঁড়িয়ে তাদেরকে বাঁচার আশ্বাস দেওয়া, তাদেরকে বাঁচার সুযোগ করে দেওয়া। সরকার সেই চেষ্টাটি করছে, সিনজিকো বলছিলেন এই মুহূর্তে আসলে সেটা জরুরি। এই আলোচনা চলতে থাকবে, সাথে থাকুন, ফিরছে একটা বিরতির পর। আমন্ত্রণ আরো একবার জানতে শুনতে চাইতে আজকে আমাদের অতিথি জাতিসংঘের শরণার্থী বিষয়ক হাই কমিশনার ঢাকায় সিনজিকো। ওয়েলকাম টু দ্য শো ওয়ান্স again. As before the discussion, I asked you that people who work for UNHCR in Myanmar, have they got any green light? As Aung San Suu Kyi promised, the international community will be working there to stop violence.
Well, unfortunately, our colleagues in northern Rakhine State are still in a very difficult situation to fully operational. In fact, we are not allowed to start delivering services to the local communities. So the situation remains very challenging, and also the security concerns are very high.
Okay. So do you regularly in touch with them?
Well, I think even the communications continue to be very challenging also. And, for instance, our staff, particularly national staff, are also under tremendous pressure. They may not necessarily be able to come to the office. Some of them are also trying to find a way to save their lives. So I think communication is very difficult. It is very important to note that many of the local people who worked for agencies like UNHCR, WFP, and other humanitarian agencies are also part of the refugees who have arrived here. So many of them have also fled northern Rakhine State to save their lives in Bangladesh.
Oh, that's the sad part I didn't know.
So I think my colleagues who had worked in Myanmar a long time before, now here to join the emergency forces. And unfortunately, our colleagues are also meeting friends who
Work for other
together.
agencies.
Yes. So it is such a sad situation.
In last nearly 2 months, I never heard this. This is really surprising and shocking.
Right. So it's actually the fundamental problem of the civilians, but among the civilians, there are many people who have been working for humanitarian interventions in Rakhine State, and these are also people who have been affected by the ongoing violence in Myanmar.
So it clearly shows whatever stand Aung San Suu Kyi took, it's kind of lies he came up with openly. Anyways, that's a different debate. Let's talk about the upcoming challenges. I mean, what are the upcoming challenges you have in your mind, and what is the most challenge you can think of right now and you can share?
Well, the important thing is to stop the violence. Without seeing the violence being stopped, this crisis will continue to escalate. So to me, the most important challenge is to see the violence being stopped. UNHCR is a humanitarian agency, so we have a very limited role to play to address political issues.
Yes.
But fundamental problems are in the political side. So this is, for me, it's a huge challenge. But at the same time, another challenge is to make sure that there will be a proper form of conversation, dialogue among the stakeholders, particularly between the two governments, Myanmar and Bangladesh. I hope the effort of Bangladesh government trying to open the new avenue for dialogue will be very successful. And
I hope so.
In case of discussions toward the solutions, UNHCR stands ready to provide any support, technical support, financial support, human resource support, to make that happen and will be implemented in a successful way.
So you also, as like UNHCR, other agencies of UN like IOM, UNICEF, WFP, they are working in the field. So in any discussion with your colleagues, do you find any other challenges, like challenge for having proper food with nutrition, maybe shelter, or maybe hygiene, or maybe water, I mean, or some vaccine? You also talked about the vaccine, 900,000 vaccine being here, but I don't think so it's enough for next 6 months or 1 year, because if something turns wrong, whole things will make a new emergency.
Yes.
So do you find any other challenge they shared with you?
Well, agencies working on the ground, including UN agencies as well as other humanitarian agencies, have put together the most urgent needs, which is now amounting to over $430 million just for the period from September to February next year. So we really hope that this funding requirement, reflecting all the detailed requirements for the emergency life-saving phase, will be receiving full support from international communities, donor communities, development partners as soon as possible, so that our effort, joint effort, would be effectively implemented. I think I have no doubt whether you're working for IOM, WFP, UNICEF, UNFPA, UNHCR, we are trying our best to put everything together so that there will be no refugees missing the opportunities to receive assistance, or there will be no overlapping, or double dipping among those who are, receiving support. So we are trying to improve day by day our coordination mechanism so that we will know exactly who is doing what, where, and who needs what. We continue our best effort to make sure that the coordination would be fully functional, and UNHCR is also, providing a lot of support to the ongoing, coordination effort.
We are almost at the end of the show. Before we end, but I have a few other questions. As we know that UNHCR Executive Committee had a meeting in Geneva. So is there any particular portion where Mr. Filippo Grandi, of course, shared about the Rohingya situation? So any kind of a high-level decision or a high-level visit you're expecting in coming days?
Yes, actually, UNHCR's Executive Committee meeting that took place last week had a huge success in terms of re-emphasizing the responsibility of the international community to assist Bangladesh government in the fullest possible way. I think it was a very important moment for international community to express the sense of solidarity so that the Bangladesh can continue to provide protection and safety for these people. So in a way, that is probably the most important achievement. Apart from that, there was a high-level discussion in different ways, and I am very pleased to note that the Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, made it very clear that all the agencies should work together based on the real refugee scenario. He said we should go by the book, according to the international law, to try to address this huge crisis as we do in the refugee crisis.
Right.
So we have enough reasons to continue to work together, reinforcing our coordination mechanism so that UN agencies can jointly provide the necessary interventions to work with the government. And I'm sure there will continue to be a number of high-level visits. I understand that Director General of IOM, Ambassador Swing, is scheduled to arrive in Bangladesh probably during the course of next week. And more of such high-level visits will continue. And this is very important for us to maintain very strong international attention to the plight of the refugees in Bangladesh, and also a massive effort the people and the government of Bangladesh is providing to this situation.
And any possible schedule for the head of UNHCR may visit Bangladesh?
Well, I would say so. Whenever there is a good moment, High Commissioner would be ready to come whenever it is useful. Also, we have a number of senior managers, such as Assistant High Commissioner for Protection. Also is also thinking about coming to the right moment in order to boost international attention to this humanitarian refugee crisis.
My last question. As Bangladeshi media has never faced such situation or never covered such situation in this country. We have covered flood, natural disaster like that, but his human disaster we have never faced. Do you think the role of media is on the right track, or somehow we've been distracted and we need to be on the right track?
Well, I think the media has playing a very crucial, vital role to solicit solidarity, informing the public about what is happening. So I really appreciate the effort made by the colleagues from media. I think the most important aspect for all of us, not only for media people, is to put the voice of the refugees at the center of our thinking. So we have to go there and listen to them, why they are fleeing, what has happened, what they need. Without hearing the voices, it will not make our job easy, and our interventions will never be very successful. So I really hope that media colleagues can also focus on their voices so that you will become the eyes and ears and the voices of the refugees too.
That's a very important message. Thank you, Mr. Shinji Kubo, for coming to the show for once again and sharing your thoughts and knowledge and capacity. I believe your words will help me to learn, my audience to learn, and that will also, the way you are coordinating with government, we believe somehow we'll be able to stop this violence from the other part of the world. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
দর্শক, আমরা কথা বলছিলাম রোহিঙ্গা সমস্যার সমাধানের উপায় নিয়ে। একমাত্র উপায় হচ্ছে মিয়ানমারের সহিংসতা বন্ধ করা। যদিও ইউএনএইচসিআর সহ যত আন্তর্জাতিক সংস্থা সেখানে রয়েছে এবং তাদের কর্মকর্তারা রয়েছে, তাদেরকে কাজ করতে দেবার জন্য বিশ্বের সামনে অং সান সুচি যে ওয়াদা করেছিলেন, সেই ওয়াদা কতটুকু রাখতে পারে সেটাই এখন দেখার জন্য আমরা অপেক্ষা করছি। দেখা হবে আগামী পর্বে।